Okay, awesome. So to give you an overview, the structure of this workshop, this is a crash course with Jamstack powered by Next.js and headless CMS, which is going to be Storyblok. And the first half, I would say an hour or nearly an hour would be led by me. And the rest of the half an hour would be led by Facundo. So in the beginning, we are going to show you the, basic, like I would say overall in general, like what is Jamstack, what's the benefit, why we want to use that, etc. And then like starting to explain you, like we use the one of the methodology called atomic design, and also moving on to show you how Storyblok works. So, and then Facundo will be able to show you like how, or more like in how-to basis, because we are going to build together this My Travel Blog project being displayed right now. So you will be able to see how you will be able to build even together in this workshop, because we have a starter GitHub repo available for that. I'm going to share with you in a minute. So to show you first of all, the final project that we are going to build together today is going to be this My Travel Blog. So as I said, this is powered by Next.js, and from the headless CMS, we chose Storyblok. So there is the home page being displayed, so you can see related posts are being displayed, and from there you can even jump to the relevant blog post that you want to take a look at it. And there is another similar to home, but another page of about. So that's what we are going to build together today. And just in case, if you want to, for example, or if you're kind of a person like want to build together, like as we like walk you through together, there is the GitHub repo available it's in under the directory or the account from Facundo. So you can easily fork and start to build together. Oops, sorry. I'm going to paste this link into the chat so you can fork this repo. All right, so that was the insight of it. And for today's talk, I want to share with you the agenda. So Facundo, would you mind maybe like sharing the, thanks. Yeah, so Facundo just right now shared with you a Notion link, which is already in public. So everyone who has the link would be able to take a look at it. And here is the outline of this workshop we are going to do today. So let me quickly open that too, so that I am also in the same track with all of us. Just give me 1 minute. Okay. Workshops. All right. So to get started, first of all, I would like to show with you that how Jamstack works and what's the huge benefit we all will be able to get from that. And then we will be able to have a better understanding of, okay, why the combination with one of the frameworks that we are going to use, which is going to be Next.js, and headless CMS, that is going to be Storyblok. So to get started, let me share with you the screen. You still see my slides, right? In the full screen. Okay, good. So yeah, let's get started. And here is more details, information about us. So I will let Facundo to introduce himself more properly in here.
Cool. So again, hello everyone. My name is Facundo Giuliani, Developer Relations Engineer at Storyblok. I'm also an Auth0 ambassador. Auth0 is a platform that we can use to add security to our applications. I'm a Prisma ambassador. Prisma is an ORM that we can use to connect a database to our applications. And I'm also a Cloudinary media developer expert. Cloudinary is a platform that you can use to add videos and images in your applications. The workshop itself is not related to any of these three products. If you want to talk about them, if you want to talk about Storyblok, Jamstack, or any other topic, you can find me on Twitter. My handle is Facundo Zurdo, or my website is fjuliani.com.
All right, thanks, Facundo. So we are going to make sure to share the slides afterwards. So you will be able to, simply copy or jump these links on the slides. So don't worry about like typing out everything written in here. All right, so very quickly about myself. So yeah, again, same as Facundo, I work at Storyblok as a developer relations engineer. And besides from my main job at Storyblok, I also am an ambassador at Girl Code. Girl Code is a British organization to empower women who are interested in to change their careers, to join in the tech industry, or like to become the developers. So that's what I'm doing too. Also, before joining Storyblok, I used to teach in a couple of online programming schools to teach the front end. So and this is something what I really love to do that. So that's why I'm also still teaching at an organization called Front End Foxes School. So yeah, that's what I'm also passionate to do. So here's my Twitter. It's arisa_dev. And here's the website, arisa-fukuzaki.dev. So you can find my previous talks or some of the blog posts I write about. Okay, need to go to the next slide. So to get started, well, first of all, I can start to explain like what is Gemstack is about. But Gemstack has a bit of history, like coming from traditional like web pages. We used to serve the content, and there is also a modern way to do that. And that's how actually Gemstack was born. The idea of the Gemstack was born. So I would like to share with you the comparison between like two way of serving the content, which are going to be static web page and dynamic web page. So here there are little explanations in there, but I'm kind of person who prefer to focus on to hear what the speakers are talking on instead of like reading the text in here. So I'm going to quickly give you an explanation with the diagram in here. So I'm going to talk about, first of all, the static web page, which is going to be on the left-hand side of more or less content, side of the diagram. So static web page is something that I would say in a simple way, it's more like closer idea to the Gemstack, or it is actually. So simply it's written in markup, which means HTML and CSS and JavaScript. There is nothing like really complicated structures in there. So in short, static web page is written in very simple architecture, and means that it's quite fast to load. And there's the logic behind. Well, the logic behind is that, as you can see in here, there are only two arrows, just going back and forth between the user request from the machine and the server. So it's only like two steps to do that. First of all, server receives a request for a web page, and then after that, the server returns the response to the client, and that's it. So means that you don't have to wait for quite a long time to get the data that you want to see or view on your machine. So it means that there's no additional process more than these, just like two arrows in there. So that's why it's quite fast for loading the content, and the pages will remain the same without the manual changes because there's no databases in there. So unless you make the change manually, the content will stay the same until you make the changes. And moving on to the dynamic web page, which is going to be the right-hand side of the diagram in here. So you see until like here, let's say like the server of this diagram looks exactly the same, but there are two additional like additional workaround that you need to do with the dynamic web page. And it's not just written in a simple like markup and JavaScript. Instead, it's written most likely in Ajax, ASP.NET, etc. And there are like extra workaround, as you can see from the diagram. It means it's gonna take time, to fetch or retrieve the information or data that you want. Means longer you travel, then of course you will need longer time to return. So the logic behind has a lot, way more, lots of process than the static web pages. So that's why, it's gonna take time a little bit to load the content, as well as there's the database is used. Means that pretty much like most of the cases, front-end side and the back-end side is tightly like binded together. And here is actually like some of the benefits that you can see already from the static web page, as we saw together the comparison between static web page and dynamic page. So we can say that, okay, so static web page is quite fast to load because less time you travel to get the data you want, then you don't have to wait longer time. And it's going to be quite cheap because there's no complex, layout or infrastructure in there. So it's going to be quite cost effective, I would say. And if there's like less complications in like the system in there, then means it's easy to maintain, as well as it's quite secure. And for this point, I can tell you that if there's like, let's say like no place to attack, means for example like database or etc., then there's no other places would be secure. So that's why static web page is considered as the safe place and easy to scale. And by default anyway, it's meant to be like created, or like this way of like serving the page is already being expected to be scaling up a lot, and it's stable. So that's why Gemstack got the idea, and that's what we are going to discover together too. So Gemstack is something that, in short, there are a couple of texts written in here. You can read it, but if I summarize, like in short, it's faster, secure, and scale. So yeah, those are the summary of the Gemstack. So I don't think like there are like some people don't like to be faster, don't like to be secure, or don't like to scale up their projects. That's something like, for example, all the enterprise levels of the projects always like would look up to, or they want to implement in their projects. And the reason behind the Jamstack is faster, secure, and more scalable is because they pre-render the the content, as well as enhancing with JavaScript. So what I mean by that, to tell these 2 points, pre-rendering and enhancing with JavaScript, I can start to explain from the first one. So pre-rendering. So for example, like all front-end is pre-built with into highly optimized static pages. So if it's pre-built, means the sites can be served directly from CDN. So there is even more benefits of like, okay, you can use the cache. So the content do not have to be, retrieved every single time when the users visit the pages or the content. Enhancing with JavaScript, what I mean by that to say is it's really fast to be delivered and secure with the direct serve from CDN, like I said before. If you want to, let's say, like integrate a third party, another like services with exposing another API, then if that's the case, you can easily communicate with backend services with JavaScript and API. So that's what Jamstack has, the benefits of that. And sorry, I forgot to share with you the graphic before, and I talked already like what I wanted to talk, but this is what we wanted to share with you in summary in a graphic here. So for Jamstack example, we took a look at we took a look together that, okay, what is Jamstack is about, and how Jamstack's idea came from, and what was the traditional approach and what's nowadays approach. But of course, it would be easier for everyone to understand with a couple of clear examples from Jamstack. So I can tell you like these 3 could be an ideal like Jamstack examples that we want to take a look at together today. So first of all, static site generator. And this is something that one of the ways to serve your content in the best way for the users who visit the pages. And I'm going to explain you more details of the static site generator. And the headless CMS is something that, well, when it comes to Jamstack, this is something I would say you cannot avoid without learning it. Of course, you can do that, but it would be much easier to learn with that. And I'm going to show you more details, why exactly headless CMS can be the example of the Jamstack and serverless platform. So starting from the static site generator, and here's a little explanation, but I believe there is a diagram. Yes, it is. So yeah, as you can see in here, SSG, in short, static site generator, is something that you can choose the way to serve the content in more secure way, as well as scalable and like fast performance. The reason why is because, well, first of all, about the security. There is no servers to do magic or work around there. So means like I said before, there is no place for malicious, let's say like code to insert the malicious stuff to attack. So that's why it's more secure. And there's no need to access databases, etc. So simply, yeah, it's gonna be like much, I would say like smaller scale, or simplifying the hosting infrastructure in there. So we took out all the complications from the security side. That's why it's safer. Oh, okay, let me admit. And another point of, another pros of SSG is the scalability. So the reason why I say SSG is scalable is because everything is cached in the CDN, and it's served directly with pre-built site. So you don't have to travel like all the way like far place and then coming back from far place to retrieve the data you want. You don't have to do that. And it's optimized anyway for scalability, for scaling by default. So SSG is meant to be created for scalable projects. So that's why maybe that's one of the ways that you might want to take a look at if you're building something like bigger scales of the projects. And lastly, fast performance is because, well, the contents are CDN cached. So you're going to see like CDN cached views anyway, and the request travel time is going to be short. And then you will be able to avoid tons of systems to interact with. So that's the benefits of going to SSG. And the reason why I display in here Next.js is because, well, Next.js already like has SSG by default. So if you don't do like any options to change, for example, not going to Jamstack, but SSR, or the other way, incremental static regeneration, ISR, by default, Next.js already serves the content, or allows you to serve the content with SSG. So means that you will be able to get all these, SSG static site generators benefit by default, just simply using Next.js. And there is the content management system, because as I showed you before, as an example of the Jamstack, headless CMS was one of it, right? But let me start from content management system. It means that it also includes the monolithic, because if you don't include the word of headless, means that most likely you're talking about in general, like everything content management system. So monolithic world, it used to be like, for example, the CMS in general was like something managing content in the application, where you can see the dashboard that is provided from, like, depending on the, let's say, technologies that you're going to use from the CMS side. And it had the databases to get access. It means that between backend and frontend, there were like quite strong like connections. Means it's actually binded. There's like no way, not really no way, but then there's like almost no way to separate these between backend and frontend. And it gave like quite hard time for developers, especially because you need to stick to like one language that you were assigned from the content management system side. So although you knew that if you could use like the front end side with the technologies such as Next.js or any other frameworks or libraries to enhance the performance, but you still couldn't do that because there is no way. But then when it comes to headless CMS, this is something you can imagine that between front end and backend, there's no connection between there. So it means that backend is taken care of from the headless CMS side, and you can simply would be able to choose whatever kind of like front-end technologies in most of all the cases. So for example, I'm a React-based kind of developer. So if I want to use Next.js, I can easily choose Next.js. Or if there's like another developer, like colleague of mine working based on the background of, I don't know, Vue.js, then he or she can pick the technologies to Next or Vue.js even, something like that. And also you can choose these front-end technologies based on the perspective to enhance the performance of your projects. So that is quite like huge nice feature that we can benefit from the headless CMS side. And I talked about in general headless CMS, but of course, like among all these headless CMSs, we have differences. And the reason why we chose Storyblok is not just coincidence, because both me and Facundo are working at Storyblok. No, and first of all, that's for a reason to hear. So we have the real reasons in here to share with you. So in here, okay, let's stay here. So headless CMS, as I told you, separates the backend and the front end, and that's not just about it. There is the API first headless CMS like us. So it means that if you want to like integrate with any third-party services, for example, like DeepL for translation or e-commerce integration in there, we even have already built plugin that you can just simply install and enable, then just like fetch the, not fetch, I mean just get the endpoint, etc. Then you will be able to display the items of the products. So if you want to do such kind of integrations with your own creation, you can easily do that. And there's not much kind of limitations for that. So you can do. And there is in Storyblok, there is the real-time visual editor integrated in it. Means that I believe that my colleague Facundo will be able to show you with his demo how exactly this real-time visual editor will work. But if I give you an insight or a quick overview of what is real-time visual editor, means that this works the best to take a look at the preview on the fly in the same one screen without leaving, you know, like opening up different browsers, etc. And you can simply, like, for example, like if you want to change the orders of the components, let's say this campaign banner and the body text to be like other way around, you can easily do that on the fly by simply click and drag and drop, etc. And we are not the page builder, so of course we have the concept of defining the component, means creating new components, and then you will be able to reuse these components if you want. So we call it this approach as a component-based approach, and that's what we actually, that's what we are actually based on, the one methodology called atomic design, and that's what I'm going to share with you, like what is atomic design, why is it so beneficial to use it, etc. So you will have a better understanding of how you will be able to not configure, I would say that how you'll be able to like flexibly, like, you know, like arrange your projects at Storyblok. And there is, of course, a place to deploy and host your projects after you finish to build your projects, of course. And that is serverless platform, such as like Vercel, because why not? Next.js already has a Vercel by default as an option. So it would be very easy to simply deploy your project in there and, you know, linked between your GitHub repo and already like host the apps in there. So that was pretty much about quick overview about what is Gemstack, why it's so beneficial, and why we want to take a look at to use it. And I talked about a couple of information based on these sources. So if you want to take a look at these sources, feel free to do that, because we are going to share with you the slides afterwards. So, all right. And I believe that was the part. I wanted to make a quick pause. I want to take a quick 5 minutes Q&A if somebody has questions. Lovely intro. Thank you.
If you have any question about the Jamstack itself or any of the concepts that Arisa mentioned, now it's the time to ask.
Thank you, Gerald. Interesting question from Richard. So is Storyblok like contentful? I would say from the category of headless CMS itself, yes, we belong in the same category of headless CMS. But the difference we have is that, well, it's not like comparing to say which one is better or not. So don't take it in that way. So simply the difference we have is that we have a real-time visual editor by default. So you don't have to build such kind of feature for, let's say, business users of your clients. And the other way is that we have component-based approach, as I shared with you in here, so that you will be able to reuse these components that you want to reuse again in the other, let's say, like pages or entries, etc. Yeah, and I would say like there are a couple of different features as well, such as like in our V2 beta, we have a couple of new features being added. So for example, like there are like discussions being added. So you don't have to like, let's say, use another like chat apps such as Slack, etc. So you can do like everything to communicate with your teammates or your clients in one screen at the visual editor. Yeah. Facundo, do you want to also like give your opinion about that?
Yes, I was going to share some comments. So Contentful is another headless CMS like Storyblok. We are focusing on Storyblok, well, because we work for Storyblok and we create the product, and we think it's a cool product to use in your projects. But feel free to investigate, to research about the different alternatives that are in the market related to headless CMS. The idea of using Storyblok today is to learn about the Jamstack, to learn how to create a project following the Jamstack approach, and we took Storyblok to use as an example of a headless CMS, which is a very important part, a very important product that I mean, we think with Arisa that most of the projects that are following the Jamstack approach use a headless CMS to manage the content for all the benefits that Arisa already mentioned, how easy it is for the content editors to create the content and for the developers to integrate that content into the applications. But again, feel free to investigate, to research the different headless CMSs that are around there. If you go to the first link of the slide that Arisa is showing right now, jamstack.org, you will see that there are different alternatives of static site generators, and headless CMSs that you can take a look there. They have different features, they have different ways of working. For instance, there are headless CMSs that instead of working as a software as a service, as Storyblok works, and we will see later, I mean, exposing an API that you can connect to and get the content from the platform. There are other headless CMSs that work with markdown files, so they store the content in a different way. There are open source headless CMSs that you can take a look. We are focusing on Storyblok, again, because we work on the product, but because we also think that the visual editor that the Storyblok offers is a great feature, and it makes the work easier for not only for the developers, but also to the content editors, to the marketers, to the content creators, to see how the content that they are creating will look like when they publish it to production. I mean, when they release the content, so the end users see it. So that is, I mean, at least for me, it's probably the best feature that the Storyblok offers. And as far as I know, there are no other headless CMSs that offer this kind of feature to work and to create the content.
Yeah. Thanks, Facundo. And there's one more interesting question. Some of the people like might get confused from, Storyblok's block. So some people might misunderstand like storybook, but no, we are not in the same company. So it's quite a similar name, but we are not in same kind of umbrella in there. So it's block with ending with K. So that's what we are. And we don't have to create the preview from what Richard asked us the question. We don't have to create the preview for that. In fact, Facundo can show you later on, like there's already like instantly you can check the preview with just simply clicking one preview button. And then everyone who has this preview URL will be able to take a look at it. Yeah, anyway, like without using the preview URL, everyone who has the access to your projects would be able to take a look at the preview on the fly in one screen at the visual editor. Yeah. Are you going to talk about e-commerce plugins? Oh, Sehas, sorry, we are not going to talk about e-commerce today. But interestingly, there are a lot of blog posts available from our site. And I have one talk actually related to e-commerce integration. So yeah, we can share with you the sources later on. Yeah, but sorry, it's not for today's workshop agenda. One quick preview, that's cool. Yeah, it's really cool. You're going to discover later. Yeah. Yes. Okay, so I guess, yeah, we can move on to the next topic, which is going to be a quick overview of what is atomic design. So for that, it's very simple concept, and I don't want to take too much time in there. So I want to share with you one video, which should not be played in different browser. Just one quick second. All right. So I'm not sure you can hear the sound. Do you hear the sound? No.
No.
Okay, okay. For that, I think I need to share the sound, right? Sorry about that. I'm quite newbie to Zoom, but I think, yeah, without the sound, to be honest, like everything is written in the slides. So you can imagine that you're just taking at the slides too. Yeah, right. Oh, sorry, Richard, you shared with me a very important info. Thanks. There is the settings. Okay, anyway, sorry about that, being totally newbie about like sharing the audio in there. But basically what I wanted to show you is that a quick slice from the atomic design. So what I'm going to talk to you about is like covering up everything what I just showed you before. Sorry about the awkwardness, like without the sound, but anyway, you saw the slides. And what I wanted to tell you is that atomic design is something that I would say structured by five elements in there. And all these 5 elements are working in a nice ecosystem. And starting from like smaller like parts, and then I'm going to explain you like the bigger scale of the elements in here. So as we saw, 5 elements are in here. Smallest one is atoms. So in here, right there. So atoms are something that you can imagine in like each HTML tags or elements, such as like form, label, buttons, etc. Or even in the input, as you can see in here. Like each of these, like, you know, every single like HTML tags are not quite useful if you're just going to like display one single of them. Maybe users might get confused that, okay, what do you want me to do with just being like display the button, but I don't see the text in there, stuff like that. But if you gather them in a group, which is going to be a molecules, so labels, input, and buttons are now gathered into one component, a group. So now users will be able to have a better idea of like, oh, okay, in this section, I just need to fill out the search, like, I don't know, words in this website, and then hit the search button. So that is molecules. And there is a next bigger scale of the elements in there, which is called organisms. So a little bit bigger than the molecules, because molecules are something that very smaller parts of the components. But of course, your projects are going to be like structures with many of more molecules. And if you're going to just like place like many more like molecules, it's going to be really hard to organize. But if there's like one bigger, like, let's say, group of categorizing these molecules into one kind of group, that would be easier to identify. So for example, if you gather the different molecules into one, let's say, header component, then for users, it would be easy to identify like, okay, this component is headers, and I should be able to find something like many and like header navigations, the icon, the logo of this website that you're taking a look at it, and there is the search component in there. And when the organisms are gathered together to, let's say, structure a whole like entry or page, then that is what is called templates. So I would say that templates are something that you already kind of like imagine from this template word itself. And yes, it is something that you do not have the real like content in there, such as hero images or paragraphs, etc. But instead, you will have every like basic information or the layout that you will need to start to fill in the real content in there. And when you start to fill out the real content in there, that's what you can call this, I would say, the element as pages, because now you can see the real content is being replaced from, you know, the placeholder before from the template. So that's what Atomic Designs are designing the systems in there. So this is not like design, like let's say art kind of, or web design kind of design. This is more like the methodologies to design the systems of components. And that's all. Actually, I wanted to talk about the atomic design, but if you're interested in, there is an ebook written by, I guess, yeah, there is an ebook, and I have read as well, and I'm sure some of you have seen it before, but it's really good, I would say, like a fundamental to understand like how atomic design works the best in what kind of situation. And the reason why I explained you atomic design is because Storyblok is based on the atomic design methodologies. So we took the idea or adapted the idea from the atomic design. So that's what we are offering to let users to create components, and will be able to create the different groups of, let's say, for example, atoms, molecules, organisms, templates, etc. And you can nest it to structure something complicated architecture, but in a simple way to control. And moving on to the Storyblok in here. So this is what you will see when you visit our website, and you can see all the main features or case studies if you want to take a look at, for example, like a similar case that you might have been working on or you might will be working on. So from there, you just need to create an account to start to be able to play around. So in this case, I have already created an account. So I logged in here, and this is my space in here. And in here, I just wanted to show you like how atomic design is being adapted in Storyblok side. So from here, I can show you very quickly that when I click the search blocks, then you can see, let me scale up. You can see the components of teaser, grid, and there are inside three features are stored. So of course I can just manually take a look and then click grid to open up and see the features are being stored inside. But I don't have to do that. Instead, I can just click the search blocks and you can already see the overview of it. And as you can see in here, I nested this feature component inside of the grid. And if you just simply want to define the new component in the root, let's say like in the same level of teaser or grid, you can easily do that too. And to create or define new components means like creating new, I would say like molecules or organisms. This block library is the place where you can create new. So from here, I can create new, let's say like test in here, and then I can, oh, sorry, I had to do it in the right way. Give me a second. So from block library, then I can add the new blocks, and then here is where I had to type out the new block name, so test. And from here, you can choose between three options. Content type block, which means that it's going to work as a template, same template as what we have seen together at Atomic Design. And this nested block is the option of, I would say more like atoms or molecules, kind of like smaller scale of the level of the component. If you want to combine these, you can use this universal block, but let's go simple. So I want to create something template, you know, from the methodology from the Atomic Design. Then for this case, I just need to select this content type block, then add block. And from here, by default, of course, there's no field types, such as like name, input, or images, etc. So I can start to create from here. So, sorry, I can click this icon, and by default, it's going to add you with the short text. But if I want to change that, I can click in here and then change all the other field types option I have. So there is a multi options, for example. If I want to do that, I can just choose the right icon, and I would say like test options and then add. So now this multi options of test option field type is being added to this test template content, in here. So I created this new test component. And if I want to add this test component in, let's say, like same root level of teaser and grid, all I need to do is go there and then click add block button. And then from here, I had to actually click save. That's why it didn't show me. So, and then from there, I can add, wait a second, it didn't show me. The test is being added. That is weird. Okay, here is being added. Oh, now I get it. Because I created this component as content type, means templates. So that's why if I try to add as a nested smaller, let's say molecule component, it won't work. This is why. So if I create something, let's say like small molecule kind of nestable components, I should be able to do that. In fact, let's do doing the same. Let's add atom, and I want to create as nested block. Let's do that. Name, add, save, then also save. Then if I want to add this atom component, now it's being displayed because I defined this time as nested components, means smaller, let's say atom or molecule, etc. So if I do that, now I was able to add this atom component in the same level with teaser and grid. I had to hit save. That's why it's not showing in this tree. So now it's being added. And of course, if I want to move this item into, let's say, like nested area of grid or any other components, I also can do that. And you can easily also do drag and drop. And from now on, Facundo will be able to take you into the real-time visual editing experience with building a blog project that I shared with you in the beginning. So, but before we go into that, I would like to take a quick pause to take the questions if you might have. Does anyone have any questions? Oh, thank you, Richard. I'm no native English speaker, so I was pronouncing atom in a weird way. I was saying atom, but it's atom. Sorry about that. Okay, thanks, Richard. Any other questions? Seems not. Okay, so if you still have, I'm there to like take your questions in the chat, so don't worry about it. You can still like keep posting your questions, but from now on, yeah, okay, we can pass the ball to Facundo to show you the rest of like the real-time visual editing experience.
Cool. So I think I need, oh no, I have the permission. No, I need
you don't.
permissions to share my screen. Yeah. Sorry,
Okay.
Arisa.
Just a moment. Hold on a second. How about it?
So I have the permission now, but it says that you need to stop sharing so I can share. So
thank you so much. Oh, Zoom
there
thing.
we go.
Yeah, there we go.
Cool. Can you see my screen now?
Yep, we can see that.
Awesome. So let's start. We will put all the things that Arisa explained very detailed. We will put all the things together so we can see how we can, using a headless CMS like Storyblok and all the component approach that we have in the platform, that how we can use it to create a real life project, let's say that in some way. And also how we can get advantage of a static site generator like Nexjs and all the features that the framework offers to us. Finally, after creating this blog website that we are going to create now, we are going to deploy it to Vercel. So you will see that we will have, at the end of this workshop, we will have our blog website up and running and free. You won't have to pay anything because the tiers that we are going to use for both Storyblok and Vercel are the free tiers because we are not creating a super big project. And on the other hand, using Nexjs as a framework is free to use. So we won't need to pay anything and we will have a beautiful blog website up and running. So first of all, I'm in this page now, which is the space that I created to manage all the content related to my blog site. I created this space like Arisa did, and well, I created some components, some components and structures here that I have predefined to make the work easier. The idea is that you don't spend a lot of time creating these structures that we are going to see now. So what I'm going to do is share with you a link in the chat that you can use to duplicate a space very similar to this one. So if you go to the link that I will share right now, if I can do it, how I can open the chat in Zoom, it's complicated.
If you find, let's say, the toolbar display microphone camera, then there is the place of the chat icon.
Yeah. Ah, there we go. Sorry, I was looking in the wrong place.
No worries,
So,
all good.
cool. So if you go to that link, Storyblok will offer you the possibility of creating a copy of this space that I'm using, and you will have it created in your own account. Something that I forgot to say is that creating an account in Storyblok is free, and creating a space is also free. It depends on some features and some benefits that you want. That I mean, you will need to start paying if you have a certain amount of traffic in your website, or if you want some advanced features that we offer, like built-in integrations, other tools that you can install and that you can configure to expand the behavior of the application. But the tier that we are going to use for this particular project is the feature. So if you create that space duplicating my space from the link that I just shared, you will be able to have all your content for free. After you duplicate this space, sorry, something that I forgot to say, if you have any question, please feel free to write it in the chat, and we can discuss about that. But after you create this space with these components, these structures, we will see that we have a home page, an about page, and a blog folder with stories inside of it. We call them stories in Storyblok because we could use the term page for that. But the thing is that a story is not, I mean, is not always a page. You can create a story as a content unit that you can use in the way that you prefer. That is, if you are going to use this story inside a certain page, or if you are going to use this story to be displayed in a different channel. As Arisa mentioned, one of the benefits of the headless CMSs is that you can create omni-channel experiences. So if you are working in the content that you are going to display, not only in a website, but also in any other application type, like a mobile application, you could use these stories too, and you are not exactly tied to use a website. I will go back to the home of my space. Let's do this. Let's click on this try Storyblok V2 button. So we use instead of using this, the user interface that I was using before, we will use this one, which is the new and improved interface for Storyblok that the product team of Storyblok is working super hard to get it done. Right now it's in beta version, so you can start testing this version 2 of the application, and you can start playing with it. The general availability of this version 2 of Storyblok will be probably at the end of the first quarter or at the beginning of the quarter 2, but you can now go test it, play with it, the beta version. One thing that I want to mention is that when we see the code later, the code of the application that we are going to create, it won't change between version 1 and version 2. So if you start creating a project using the version 1 of the Storyblok application, you won't need to do anything to migrate to the Storyblok V2. The changes that we are doing are to the user interface and the user experience of the application, but not in the way that Storyblok uses to integrate with your application. That will remain the same. So we are here in the content menu, seeing all the stories that I have. I have this home story, which is the home page of my website. And you will see that if I enter here, we are in the real-time visual editor of Storyblok. You will see that here we have a preview URL that is pointing to an HTTPS connection and my local host with a certain port. And we have this page that has a body property. This body property has some components inside of it. These components, the teaser, the grid, and the feature post, they have also other properties, for instance, a headline or an image. And we can create these components grouping other components too, like the case of the grid. If I enter here, you will see that inside the grid, we have other components of type feature. These features have other properties. So probably you can start seeing this and start to identify the atomic design that Arisa was mentioning before, because we can create templates for the pages that we are going to create. These templates are the content types that we are defining and that we are creating in Storyblok. If we go back to the space, we can define the types of the components, not here in the Storyblok B2, because the Storyblok team is working to create this menu. But if we go back to the version 1, you will see that if we go to this components menu, we have all the different types of components that we can handle in our space. These components can be of two main types. One is the content type, which is the template that we are going to use for our pages. In this case, we will see that we have this page type and the post content type, and we have the nestable components, which are the ones that we are going to use inside the pages, which are the cases of the features that we saw before, the grid, the teaser, the text, and etc. So I will go back to the version 2 because it's looking great and I want to use it. But when we are seeing this page, I mean, you can see that I'm loading this URL here. We have all the components inside my page and other properties that we defined when we created these components, but I don't see anything on the left-hand side. And that is because I'm not running any application in the localhost 3010, this port. So what we are going to do now is, now that we saw and we did this quick review of the content that I have in my space, what we are going to do is to create the Nexjs application locally. So to do that, I will move to another page. I will run a terminal. And for this, no, sorry, 1 second. Let me open a new window of the terminal. Yes, so let me maximize it. So I'm moving to a folder that I use that is called code. And here, what I want to do is to create a new Next.js application. To do that, we have to run this command, npx. You need to have Node installed in your computer and the package manager for Node. So you can run this type of commands like npx. Then I will run create next app. And this command, what it will do is to run and create an initial boilerplate of a Next.js application and starter of a Next.js application with all that I need to run the application locally with some mockup content. So I will run this. I need to install this package. I will put yes. After installing the package, what is the name of my project? Let's call it AgentConf workshop. So it is installing all the dependencies. Nexjs is a static site generator, and it's a framework that works on top of React. So we can say that it is a meta framework that works on top of React. And so I mean, the framework that we are going to use to create the components in our application and all the front end is React, using features that are offered by Nexjs. So you will see it. I mean, if you are familiar with React, you will see that we will create React components. I mean, exactly as if we were creating a React application, but we will add some more features that are offered and that are integrated in Nexjs as the framework. So after I created the project, now it's available. Sorry, is there any question? Yeah.
No, I just posted.
Okay, no, sorry.
No worries,
So,
it's all good.
I will move to the folder that I just created, and I will open Visual Studio Code for it, because this is the the development environment that I like to use to work with React and with Next.js. Visual Studio Code is a free text editor that you can download and you can use. I imagine that if you are developers, probably you are familiar with it, but I mean, it's free and it's not a text editor. It's more like an integrated development environment because you have a lot of tools that will make the work easier for you to work with the frameworks and the programming languages that you want to use. I don't know if the font is big enough, or if not, I will make it a little bigger.
Now it's better, yeah.
Cool. So as you can see, this is all the boilerplate that Next.js is generating for me when I create a new Next.js application. So you can see that we have the node modules that it installed that we are going to use in our project. We have a certain structure of folders that we will see later. But what I want to focus on is right now in the package JSON, you can see that we have the details related to our project here. As any other package JSON of any node application that you have, we have all here, all the commands that we are going to run to start the server locally and work with it. We have here Next, as we mentioned before, the framework, and React also installed because Next works on top of React. So we have here the Next config file, which is also created. Here we can add configuration related to the way that we want Next.js to work with our project. We won't change anything here. We have some styling that is defined by Next.js in this case if we want to use a generic CSS for the content that we are going to create. We will see that we will use another framework to manage the CSS styling in our project. Taiwan Css, we will see that later, how to install and configure Taiwan Css. We have a couple of icons here for our application, and probably the most important folder that we will have in our project is the pages folder, where we can see that we will have one JavaScript file for each one of the routes that we want to manage in our application. In this case, we have only the index.js file, which means that we will have only one page in our website, which will be our home page. This is the root of the home page. And also we will see that we have this general configuration that will apply to all the pages of our website. So if we want to do something that affects to all the pages in our website, we have to go here, like adding, for instance, if you're working with React and you want to add a context provider or a global component, this will be the place where you can add it. On the other hand, Next.js is not only a static site generator, it is also a framework that offers you the possibility to work with server-side rendering, which would be the dynamic way of generating pages that Arisa mentioned before, sorry. I mean, you can use this server-side rendering in the case that you want to generate content dynamically for every request that we will have from the visitors in our website. And we have also the possibility of creating API functions or API routes, as they call them in Next.js. These API routes will allow us to run code on the server and, well, return some result or some content to the users that are visiting our website. So if we need dynamic content or dynamic behavior to be executed in our project, we can create these API routes, and we can also manage server-side rendering. But as we are going to create a website following the Jamstack approach, and as Arisa mentioned before, the idea of this Jamstack approach is to have as many static assets as possible, because that is faster, that is more secure, that that will make it easier to maintain, and other benefits that we have. And so what we are going to do is as we saw before in the final result of our blog site, as the pages that we are going to create and that we are going to maintain in our blog site are going to be exactly the same for all the visitors in our website, what we are going to do is generate these pages ahead of time in a build process using the static site generation feature of Next.js. So we will get these static pages available to be visited by the people before they request the pages. So they won't need to request the page and wait for the web server to generate the page and generate the HTML content that we want to display to the users. So what we will see later is how to define a page or define a certain set of pages. That is what we are going to see with another feature of Next.js. And this set of pages will be generated ahead of time on a static way. I mean, we will generate static pages that we will store in our web server. In the case of the example that we are going to use today, we are going to store the static assets in Vercel, the platform. And these static assets will be available for all the visitors. So when they go to our website, they will download the static version of our pages without having to wait for any dynamic process to be executed. So let's continue with the creation of our project. We have here the general structure of a Next.js application. What I'm going to do now is to, well, open a new terminal in Visual Studio Code. You will see that if I go to the package JSON again, we have certain commands that we can run. The dev command will execute a development server locally. And one thing that we need to consider is that when running a development server, what we are doing is generating the code and the content of our website, executing the logic for every request. So if we are working on static site generation to generate the static assets of our website, we won't need to wait for this build process to run to generate the new static version of the pages over and over again while we are introducing changes. So if we run the development server locally, we will have something similar to the server-side rendering being executed for all the routes and all the pages that we will have in our process. If we want to run the build process, generate the static assets for them to be available on our website, we will need to run this other build command. And then we need to start the web server running this command, npm run start. So we will have the web server running locally using the static version of the pages that we generated. So what I'm going to do now is to show you that if I run npm run dev now, we will have our application working on localhost 3000. So if I go to my browser and I go to localhost 3000, we will see the boilerplate that we generated from using, create next app, the command that we run in the terminal. So this is what the Vercel team is offering to us. We will have all this content that has links to the official documentation of Vercel and Next.js. So this is the content that is living. As you can see, we are visiting the home page of our website, and all this content is inside the pages/index.js file. So if I go to the code of that page, I will go to pages index.js file. If I change something here, like instead of showing welcome to Next.js, I want to say welcome to AgentConf. I can change this here, AgentConf. I save the changes, and if I save the changes, you will see that this is automatically changed. As I mentioned before, we have this feature called hot reload that is displaying the changes while they are being saved in the files, and we don't need to wait for any process to be executed. So I will stop, the development server. I don't know, is there any question by now?
Not that I see from the messages. Yeah.
Cool. Please don't be shy. If you have any question, feel free to interrupt me because I'm talking a lot and fast, so I need a pause.
Don't worry. When I catch some like questions in the text, then I'm gonna make sure to post you there.
Cool, excellent. So I will apply some changes to this initial project that we created with Next.js. What I'm going to do first is to remove this API folder because we won't use API routes today. And what we are going to do also is, as I mentioned before, we won't use the CSS classes and the CSS filing, I mean the style that Vercel is offering us in this boilerplate. We are going to use another framework called Taiwan CSS. We won't go super deep into Taiwan CSS. It has a lot of features and the possibilities are endless. If you want to create your own design systems or the way that you want to use to apply CSS styling to your code, I encourage you to go to Taiwan CSS. I mean, I'll Google it, but if you want, you can read more about Taiwan CSS. We have utility classes that we can apply to our HTML elements, and using these utility classes, we will work in an easier way applying the design systems that we want to create for our applications and applying custom designs to all the elements in our web page. So what I'm going to do now is to install Taiwan CSS in my application. I have the command here, so I will run this command npm install. I mean, this command, if you go to the Taiwan CSS web page, official web page, you will see that this is exactly the same command, the one that I'm running, but we are installing Taiwan CSS, post CSS, and auto prefixer. So I'm getting the latest version of all of them for my application. So right now, what we can do is to remove these two styles file that we have and that are provided by Vercel because we are going to create our own. So I will run another command now, npx init. So when we run this command now, we will create an initial configuration file. You can see that I just created this couple of files where we can add different configuration for the way that we will use to manage Taiwan CSS and to generate the CSS files for our project. I mean, Taiwan CSS allowed us to work with some meta tags and some advanced features that after that they will generate the CSS files, the final CSS files that we will use in our pages. So after running this command, we will go first to the Taiwan.config.js file. We can see here some configurations that we can add. What I'm going to do now is, sorry, I'm taking a look because I want to open to make probably the work easier. But what I'm going to do is to grab the configuration that we have in the workshop. I mean, not to spend a lot of time writing all the configuration that we need to add. I mean, the idea here is to get the main concept, but not writing everything from scratch. So probably it will be easier if I go to the configuration that I already have and we copy it here and we explain it. I mean, we are adding some fonts that we want to use for the blog site that we are going to have. After that, we will add the configuration for the post CSS file that we also generated with the command that we just ran, you will see here that we are adding some plugins to Taiwan CSS, depending on the configuration that we want to use to set the style for our content, sorry, for our website. So we are adding here some fonts that I will need to copy. So you will see that if I go to the public now, the public folder, I will need to add these fonts because they are not here. So I will create a fonts folder and I will copy the fonts that we are going to use. Here, I will paste the fonts. We have here the ones that we just added to the configuration of Tailwind. So we are adding some custom fonts to use in our website. And also we have this custom configuration to define, again, the configuration and the way that we are going to use to generate the CSS code that we need or that we are going to use in our project. So we have the fonts, the custom fonts, and what I'm also going to do is in this styles folder, we don't have anything. I will create a new file. I will call it tailwind.css. And in this tailwind.css file, what I'm going to add is some Tailwind, Tailwind specific instructions that we are going to use and some components that we are included that we are going to use again to style the pages that we will have in our website. This is all like boilerplate configuration that I have from a previous project using Tailwind CSS. But again, I encourage you to go to the Tailwind CSS official webpage, take a look and see how you can customize all the style that you are going to use in your project. So after installing Tailwind CSS and taking a look to it, and I leave you the homework to read about Tailwind CSS and see all the possibilities that it offers to us. What we are going to install now are two packages, two NPM packages that are going to make our work easier and our lives easier to work with Nexjs and to connect to our Storyblok space and get the full experience of Storyblok. So I will install npm install. First of all, I want to add the Storyblok.js client. This package will allow us to use the Storyblok API to bring the content from a certain space. So we will see later that we will create some code, and this code will call this Storyblok API to bring content and to use the content in our pages, in the logic of our application. That is one of the packages that we are going to install. The second package that I want to install is called @Storyblok/Storyblok Editable. This other package, what it will do is to give us the possibility to link the React components that we will have in our Next.js application with the components that we are creating in the Storyblok space and have the possibility of identifying them in the visual editor and editing them and see in real time how these components would look like when we publish the content in production. So these are the two main components, NPM packages that I need to install to work with Storyblok. Storyblok.js client and Storyblok Editable. What I also want to install that we will need for our project right now is Axios, because right now the Storyblok.js client has Axios as a dependency to do the calls to the Storyblok API to bring the content. One good news that I can share with you is that the product team is working to remove this dependency, so you won't need to install Axios anymore to work with the Storyblok.js client, and you will be able to call the Storyblok API in a faster way without this dependency. So the package will be smaller. And another package that I want to install, as we will have some markdown coming from the space of a Storyblok, is called marked. So this marked component will allow us to work with markdown that we will have in the components or certain components that we will have in our space in Storyblok. You will see later how this is managed. But these are all the packages that I want to install and that I'm going to use for the content that I want to display in my website. So we install all the packages. What we are going to do now is, first of all, I want to, again, start creating the files that we will need to get the blog site working. And as I said, I will copy the code and I will paste it. I won't write it, but we can discuss and we can see all the details of the code that we are creating to understand what is happening. So we installed these packages related to Storyblok. What I'm going to do now is create at the root level of my folder a new folder, because what I want to create is a file that we will use in the pages that we will have in our website. To this file will wrap all the code related to the integration that we will have with Storyblok. So what I want to do is to create this new folder that I will call it lib, and inside of lib I will create a new file called storyblok.js. This storyblok.js file will contain all the code that we will use to connect to Storyblok. I will copy the code and we will go through it now. But first of all, what I want to show you is, I think, I don't see the terminal, new terminal. Cool. So we are importing here to React hooks, use effect and use state that we will use them later. And we are also importing the Storyblok client from the Storyblok.js client package that I mentioned before, because we will instantiate this Storyblok client once and we will use it in the pages that we will have on our website. So this is the code that we need to initialize the Storyblok client. We are going to call it Storyblok, and we are instantiating a new Storyblok client with these details. We have an access token, and well, we are defining this configuration that is not really needed, but I'm going to add some cache managing depending on the queries that we are going to run against the Storyblok API. This access token will be the field that we need to input to connect to the Storyblok space that we are creating and where we are managing all the content. So where you can find this access token, I will go back to the version 1 of Storyblok to show you now what is the current way of getting this API token. If you go to the settings menu and you go here to the API keys tab, you will see that we have these tokens that we can grab. The one that I'm going to use for this project is the preview one, which is the one that you are going to use when creating the content and displaying the content and being able to edit it. If you want to only display the content, consume the content from Storyblok and display it in your website, you will need to use this public API token, which is the one that you should use in the production environment. So this is the preview token that I'm going to grab here and use. I will paste it here because I already have it, but in your case, you will have to grab the API preview token and put it here. This is an example, and we are seeing here a way of connecting to the Storyblok API, and this is a test project. This is not something that we will have living. In your case, this access token should be hidden and protected because it shouldn't be visible to any person. And you can use features like environment variables that you have in Next.js. I encourage you to take a look to the environment variables, but you can hide this token in Vercel configuration and only be visible for the control panel in the control panel of your website and not by anyone. So we are instantiating here the new Storyblok client that we will use to retrieve the content. This will be used in the page to, again, bring all the information related to the pages that we want to display. I don't know if there's a question. Yeah, should it? Exactly, Richard. I mean, I just answered. Cool. Yes.
Ahead,
I mean, this is an example, but yes, this token shouldn't be visible here. This shouldn't be in this file. We should hide it for any person. Now we are creating this other function, use Storyblok, that it will make sense later when we see the code. I don't want to go super deep into this. In fact, I will make it easier for you to understand so we don't get super complicated, because one thing that I want to tell you is that we are working on a new React package that we will offer you to connect Storyblok with React projects in a way easier way than the one that I'm using here. We are improving the integration between Storyblok and React projects like Next.js or Gatsby. If you are using those frameworks, or React itself, you will only need to add a couple of lines to your content and that will make the magic. But by now we are using this, which is our current version, let's say. So we have this export function that we are calling use Storyblok. It will get all the information related to one story. As we mentioned before, a page in our website will be a story. So we will bring all the information related to story. We will save in the state of our page the content related to that story. And we are setting here the React hook use state using the set story function and the story that will live in the context of our page. Besides that, we will have another function inside of this use Storyblok hook that will be called init even listeners. And what we are going to do here is to create the connection between our application and the real-time visual editor in Storyblok. So as we said before, the Storyblok client will be used to bring the content from Storyblok. But what we are going to use to display the content inside Storyblok is what we call the Storyblok bridge. The Storyblok bridge is a JavaScript snippet that we are going to include in all the pages of our website, or all the pages that we want to edit inside the real-time visual editor. And this Storyblok bridge snippet offers us some event listeners. So whenever an event is happening inside the real-time visual editor of Storyblok, we will catch that event and execute certain code or certain logic. So what we do here is create an instance of the Storyblok bridge. We are adding here some resolved relations because, I mean, this is mainly related to Storyblok, but if we are linking different stories, as I mentioned before, that we can have stories that are linked and used in different ways, we can have these relations between some stories and others. We can tell the bridge that we will resolve these relations. So whenever we retrieve all the content related to a certain story, we want to also retrieve the content related to the related stories of that one. So that is what we are going to do here. If we have a property called feature post, we will bring the information of those posts. If we have a property called selected posts, we will bring all the information related to those posts. If I go again to Storyblok, you will see that if I go to the content and I go to the home page, we have a teaser. The teaser has a headline and an image. I have a grid with features, as we saw before, with icons. And I also have this feature post component that inside of it, it has a list of posts. And these posts that we are linking here are other stories that we have in our space. So we have the title and the list of posts. If I go back to the content and I open this blog folder, you will see that here we have all the posts that we were linking in the home page. So if I enter to any of these posts here, you will see that we have the title, we have the image, we have the intro, the long text. So if I'm resolving the relations of the stories that are linked to my, for instance, home story, I will bring all the fields from the posts that are linked. So we initialized the Storyblok bridge, and what we are doing is setting this init event listener. So whenever a change is introduced to a story, I mean, whenever we are saving a change in a story, or whenever we are publishing a change in a story, we will reload the page and will display the new version of the page. But the most important events that we will catch are here. One is the input. This event is happening whenever a change is introduced to any part of the page inside the real-time visual editor. In that case, what we will do is to, having the event, we will receive the new version of the story, I mean the version with the change that we just introduced, and we will set the story that is in the context of our page using the new version of the story. This is probably the most important part of linking with the Storyblok bridge, because whenever we get a change in the real-time visual editor, in the page that we are seeing, we will get the new version of the story and will display it following the logic of our application. And the other event that we are going to handle is when we enter to the edit mode, which means when we load the real-time visual editor. And what we are doing here is using the Storyblok API client that we initialized here. We are getting all the information related to the story that we are loading, and we are putting in the context of our page, all the information related to the story that we are visiting. So we're doing all of that inside this use Storyblok function. The other thing that we are doing is adding the bridge to all the pages, as I mentioned before. So we verify if the page that we are visiting has an element called Storyblok bridge, and if it doesn't, what we do is add this script. I mean, as I mentioned before, this JavaScript snippet that is living in this URL. I mean, you don't need to download anything. You will retrieve the file directly from here. And when we added the script, I mean, this JavaScript snippet to the body of our page, what we are going to do is to run the callback function with which, in this case, I mean, the add bridge, we receive a callback function that, using the use effect hook here, we will see that we are running this, calling this add bridge function, and the callback function that we are passing as parameter is the init event listener. So when we added the JavaScript snippet to our page, we will add all the event listeners that we saw before. So that is mainly all the configuration that we need to add to our project to make it work with Storyblok. Is there any question by now that you have?
From what I see in the chat, I don't see, but feel free to write it down if you have.
Cool. So let me double check, because here I remember that in the app, in the app file, we're importing this style that we won't use because we will use Taiwan Css. So I will change here. So we created all the logic related to Storyblok. What I'm going to do now is to create the page, the code of the page. We saw before that we have this index.js file, and I see we are running out of time, so I'm going to try to make it faster. But we have here this index file that is showing the content from the home page. What I'm going to do instead of that is rename this file as the bracket. I will explain it now, but I will put the 3 dots here, / and the brackets, the brackets again. This way of calling a file, I mean, this file name is what in Next.js we call a dynamic web page, a dynamic route. If you add the brackets to the file name, that means that you are not visiting one page, but what we are going to do here is to handle multiple pages following certain conditions. I want to copy the content here and we can talk about it, because this is the code of my dynamic web page. But what we can see here is that we are importing React, of course. We have a layout component, this layout component, and we have a dynamic component. We will explain them later. We are importing here the Storyblok API client that we created before, and we will have the use Storyblok hook that we also created before. I will remove this because we won't use it. Also this, so we will make it easier to understand. Give me some seconds. I'm removing I mean code that we won't use, and so we make it easier to understand and to follow. But yes, here we are. So we are importing here the functions that we created to integrate with Storyblok. Here, this is the main function of our dynamic route. What we are going to do here is put all the code that we will use to render the content that we want to display in our pages. So this main function will receive, we can see here, all the information related to a story from Storyblok. We will initialize that story using the use Storyblok hook that we created before, applying all the behavior that we saw before, and using the content of this story that is coming from the Storyblok API, we will add a React component layout, which is a general layout that we will use for any page. And inside of it, we will manage a dynamic component that we will see later what it means. And we will use for this dynamic component all the information related to the content of the page that we are visiting. So the question is where the content of the story is coming from. Storyblok offers, sorry, not Storyblok, Nexjs offers these get static props functions that we can use to generate static assets, static pages using certain logic. So here what we see is that we are grabbing the slug or the URL of the page that we are visiting. With that slug, we are defining here some parameters that we will use also. And we are calling the Storyblok API client to get all the information related to the story that has this slug. So if I'm visiting the home page in my website, we will see that we are bringing all the information related to the story with the slug home. So when we retrieve all the data related to that story, we return it here to the main function that we saw before. So this is returning properties. The property is the story, and the story that we are bringing from the Storyblok API client, we are using it to generate all the markup for my page. So this code will be the same if we use static site generation or server-side rendering, because we are bringing all the information related to the story and we are running that code in the server. But let's say that we want to run this at build time to generate the static assets, as we said before. So here we have this function get static paths that is also offered by Next.js. And this get static path, what it's going to do is to generate a list of URLs that we want to run with this dynamic route and get all the pages that are in this list of URLs. So the get static path will call the Storyblok API client, will bring all the links, which these links in the Storyblok space are all the stories that we have. So we will receive all the URLs of all the stories that we have in a Storyblok. And with these URLs, we will generate a path list where we will put all the slugs that we are generating. And this get static paths function will generate a list of paths that we will use to generate each one of the pages following the logic of the list of URLs that we generated. So if we are bringing all the stories that we have in the Storyblok space and we are bringing all the URLs of those stories, we will run this get static props function for each one of the URLs of the stories in my space. So this main function will be executed for each one of the URLs that I have in my space with the content of each one of the stories that have those URLs. So this is the code of my dynamic route. I encourage you again to go to the Next.js documentation and read more about dynamic routes because the possibilities that you have with them are endless. You can do a lot of things with them. So we have our dynamic route, and what I mentioned before is that we have this dynamic component, which is a React component. So what we are going to do now is to create at the top level a components folder, and these components folders will contain, I will copy all of them so we don't lose a lot of time, but, sorry. Delete, let me, here at the top level, I will paste here, yes. Here in this components folder, we will have all the React components that we will use in our space, sorry, in our project. So here you see a lot of React components with the markup for all of them. We won't go super deep into that, but you can see that we are using the classes that are offered by Taiwan Css. What I want to stop here is to show you some of these components. One of them is the dynamic component that I mentioned before and that we are using in the dynamic route. For this dynamic, sorry, is there any question? Because I see that we are receiving.
Yes, there is about dynamic routes. So cool. Instead of including this spread operator, is there a way to just use the square brackets?
That's a very, very good question, Rose, because in this case, we are using the double brackets because what we want to retrieve is not only the roots that have a value, but also if they are empty. So if we are visiting a URL that is storyblok.com and nothing else, that empty root wouldn't be considered if we use the single bracket dynamic route. So what we are doing is if we are visiting folders, for instance, if we go to storyblok.com/blog and that blog is a folder and we don't have any value for the root there, using the double brackets, we are bringing that URL as empty, but we will load the page. So what we are not only handling is are the roots that have a value, that have a string in the URL, and also the ones that they don't have a string in the URL. So we are trying to, with this spread operator and the two double brackets, we are going to consider all the URLs that are going to happen in our website. This is what we are trying to do here. This dynamic route will evaluate all the routes that are going to be inside our website. I don't know if I was clear or not. I can share with you the documentation, the official documentation of Next.js, where you can read more about using the spread operator in a dynamic route and using the double bracket instead of the single one. But yeah, we can share that later with you. Sorry, I saw the clock and I see that we are running out of time.
No worries. No worries, I share that.
To focus. Cool. Thank you, Arisa. So here in this dynamic component, what we are going to do is to grab all the information related to a certain component without knowing which type of component we are rendering and display it using the React component that we have in our project. So we are calling a React, a React component can be a component in our space, or also it can be a template of a page in our space. So you can see here that we are importing all the React components that we have both in our project and in Storyblok. The teaser, the feature post, which are the ones that we saw before. We are also bringing the templates of the stories of the pages. We have here the page or the blog post. And we are creating here a list linking the component type as it is coming from the Storyblok API, and also the React component. So this teaser in lowercase is the component type that will come from the Storyblok API. And if we receive this teaser component type as the value of the block, we will load a teaser React component from the ones that we have in our project here. So you can see that we are linking the teaser with the teaser, the grid with the grid React component. So when this dynamic component receive a block or a page, as we saw in the dynamic route, we ask for the type of the component. This is the format that is coming from the Storyblok API. And if we have a component with that type, we load a React component of that type with the information that is coming from the block or from the component. And we return that. So in the case of the dynamic route that we have here, if we receive the home page, for instance, we are sending all the information to the dynamic component. The dynamic component will receive a component of type page. So it will load a page React component. And if we go there, here we have it, you can see that we are loading the page component with the information related to the block or to the component that, or to the page that is coming from the Storyblok API. So if we receive a page component from the Storyblok, we are going to render all this HTML markup, which is the main part of my page. We grab the body property that we have here in the page. The body property, and we will bring all the components that we have here in all the blocks that we have in the body of a page, and we will render a dynamic component for each one of them. So if we have a teaser, we will render a teaser React component. And you can see that we have here the markup with the style provided by Taiwan Css that we are going to use for any teaser. So we receive this block and we use the image of the teaser here, the alt text of the image, and we also use the headline. If we go here, you will see that the teaser has the headline and the image. If we get a grid, we will see that we have a list here with columns, and these columns will have nested blocks that are dynamic component that in our case will be features, as we saw before. So we will get for every feature, we will have an icon and we will set the name and the description as we have here. If I go to the grid, you will see that we have features, and these features have a name, a description, and an icon. And that is what we are displaying here, the name, the description, and an icon. The last thing that I wanted to mention that you can see here, that you probably saw in the page and in the teaser, is that we are calling here the SB editable function from the Storyblok editable package that I installed before and that I mentioned before. We are adding this SB editable function at the top level of my React component. So doing this, what we are doing is adding a flag to the React components saying that they are going to be editable inside the real-time visual editor of Storyblok. So you can see that all the React components have this SB editable function, adding all the tags or the flags, letting know the real-time visual editor that these components are clickable and editable inside the real-time editor of Storyblok. I won't enter to all the React components. If you want to take a look to them, you can go to the GitHub repository of the workshop, but the idea was to copy them because what I want to do now is to npm run dev, and I want to show you that, oh, sorry, I have an error. Yeah, so probably I need to install npm run npm install to generate everything. Npm run dev again. Oh man, this is obvious that this was going to happen.
But people can tell that we are like, you know, hosting workshop in live. So that's at least good thing.
Let me probably, I forgot to install this. There we go. Yeah, npm run dev. Okay, so if I go now to localhost, you should see that I'm, oh, because I forgot to install this other component, and I forgot to mention it because I mentioned the markdown that we will have in the content. But this Storyblok React render will help us to make it easier to render markup coming from the Storyblok API and displaying it in our website. Sorry for the error because I didn't run the server. This is live coding. This is what it's happening. Ah, man. Again, can't resolve leave Storyblok. Why? Because I created it, right? Because it's not at the level that I wanted.
By the way, Facundo, did you have set the SB editable in the root HTML elements?
You mean which one? Oh, sorry.
No worries. Did you like enable the SB editable already?
I did it.
You did, okay.
I did it. I mean, SB editable in the components.
Yeah.
Here, right?
Yeah, here they are. Okay.
Cool. So, whoa. Here we are missing some style probably. Yeah. Because I need to run I forgot to run something coming from Tailwind probably. That is why it's not looking correct.
Yeah, because if the styles are the only missing thing, that would be most likely the case.
Yep. So, sorry, as we are running out of time, let me share with you and we can discuss it later, because what I wanted to show you is that, I mean, well, the page is now looking, oh no, this is looking awful. I mean, it is working, but it's looking awful. So let me see what happened, because probably I'm missing something here. What? The styles, Taiwan CSS. Yeah, everything is working here, right?
Did you miss some configuration from Tailwind CSS?
Yeah, probably. Yeah. So what I want to see is if probably it's related to the version of Tailwind that I'm using. If any of the attendees have an idea, it's more than welcome.
Do you want to check out the Tailwind configuration file?
Yeah, I'm looking to fixer. Probably I need to install this as a dev dependency. No, but everything looks correct here, or at least it looks similar to what I have in the.
Okay, maybe do you want to use the DevTools in the browser? Maybe you might find something to inspect.
Hmm. Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't want to, I mean, I don't want to take super long this because we are over time, but let me see if we can, at least what I wanted to show you is that, I mean, if we run this is how the site should look like. But what I wanted to show you is that if we see here, I mean, we are loading the home page. This home page has the menu here, but what we are loading is the home page. I mean, we have the teaser with the properties that we set before. I mean, if I go to the component, to the teaser here, you can see that we are applying the style and the markup that we define, and that is not working in my local version. But the idea is that we are using the fields and the components that are coming from Storyblok. What we can do inside the real-time visual editor with the code that we have in our application is that we can edit the different fields, the different properties of our components, and we can add AgentConf, for instance, here, and see in real time how the changes are being applied to the content of our site, of our web pages, because we are using the code that we created here, and we are listening to the events. So whenever an input event is happening, we are setting the story of the page again. And this is what is happening here. You can see that I can change the properties of the components and see in real time how it is going to look like. I can also move the components and rearrange the page, and it will also display that because we are changing the story and we are reloading the state of the story in the page. So, I mean, this is what you can do with the real-time visual editor of Storyblok. This is what I wanted to show you. And we are loading all the pages, because if I go to the About page, for instance, it has a different style here. I mean, we have only a text. This text is using Markdown, and this is the one that I needed the component to manage the Markdown. But I mean, we have the text that we are adding. We also, if I go back, you can see that if I go to the blog, we can view one of the articles. The articles have also a different style here, and we're applying this style. And again, we also have the possibility of changing the properties and see in real time how it is going to look like when we publish the content of our pages. So if I add this here, you will see that we are changing it. We are changing the properties. We can change this here. And this is the possibility that we give the content editors to create content, generate content, and see in real time how it will look like before they publish to production. So what we see here is using the React code that we created in the Storyblok JS file, and this is applying to the state of the pages. But what you are going to generate with the build process that we saw before of Next.js are the static pages of the website. So when you, when you generate all the static assets, you will deploy it to a certain server like Vercel, for instance, and the page that the users are going to visit is the page that was generated statically when running this build process. So the question is how you do that automatically. You will have, if I go to the repository of the workshop that we are using now, you will see that here we have all the code of my application. you can see here that this is the code that we created, the slug, or probably it's too small, but this is the dynamic page that I created. And all this code, I can link this GitHub repository with Vercel. If I go to vercel.com, I will log in. Again, creating an account in Vercel is free. I'm linking that account with my GitHub account. So I can, if I go here, I can create a new project. Let's say that I want to import a Git repository from my GitHub account. So I will import this Storyblok Next workshop. If I import it, let's call the project Storyblok Next workshop AgentConf. So this is the name that our website will have in Vercel, in the platform. We won't configure anything else because Vercel is improved to work with Nexjs as they created the framework. So when we link the GitHub repository where all the code of our application is living with Vercel, it will automatically identify if we are using a static site generator in the code of the application. It is recognizing that we are using Nexjs. You can see the icon. All of that is done automatically. Vercel is running the build process for our website. So we are generating the static assets for our website here. After this build process is run, this is taking almost a minute because this is the first time that we are running it and we are generating the page. But when we build all the static assets that contain our website, you can see here that we are generating the static assets. You can see, sorry, I will go back and show you, but it ended, the process ended, and we are seeing all the confetti because we have our new website. But if I go to the dashboard, you can see all the deployments here. If I click on deployments, this is the one that we just executed. And you can see that building, we generated the static assets with static site generation for the dynamic route that we created, the one that I mentioned before, and we are generating all the paths that we want to have in our website. We have here all the blog posts and 3 more paths. So we are generating the static version of the pages based on what we linked with the space in Storyblok. So if I go now to Storyblok -next workshop agentconf.vercel.app, I will have my website up and running here. So we have our website with all the static assets. If I click on these pages, we will load the static version of the pages. We are not hot reloading or using server-side rendering. And if we go here, we can see that running this build process will generate all the static assets of our web pages. So now we have this Storyblok space linked to this static version of my blog living in Vercel. All is working for free. I see that there are lots of comments in the chats. I don't know if there's any question. I see that we passed 10 minutes from the end of the. Yeah, sorry. I mainly showed everything that I wanted to show. Sorry of the errors that I got while working on the code, but yes, please tell me if you have any question.
First one, there is one from Bakir. He has been working with the Next.js and Storyblok with Firefox. And sometimes, not every time, sometimes that he gets an error of type error, like network error when attempting to fetch resource. He was wondering, did you also have same issue?
Type an API call from Storyblok page to with a normal Nexjs, it does not occur, and also only for. Whoa. No, I don't think that. No, I'm not sure that I saw that error before.
Same opinion from my side too, but this could be something we could look into probably for a little bit more double checking investigation, I would say.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
will double check with the team, but that's a good point. I mean,
Yeah.
could you take note of that, Arisa?
Yeah, of course.
We discuss that with the team later. Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Sure.
Do you set SB editable on the root HTML element of each component? Yes. The idea of the SB editable function is to wrap all the content that you want to be updated whenever you are editing in the real-time visual editor like I'm doing now. So yes, you should put it in the root HTML element. Cool. Well, thank you for the one. Yeah, Richard, I mean, I think you're right. I will need to check my Tailwind config file. That was probably the. Did you import Tailwind inside? Ah, that's another good point. Oh, sorry. Now I'm reading all the comments that you shared when I was struggling with the issue. But what would happen if you added, say, a sidebar animation to a React component? Would you see it in the real-time preview also? Yes, Richard. Well, sorry, Arisa already answered. But yes, I mean, the real-time visual editor is mainly an iframe that is loading the website, your website, inside of a Storyblok, and it is linking using the Storyblok.js bridge that we saw before. But what we are loading here is the real version of your website. So whatever you add to your website, you will see it here inside the real-time visual editor. Cool. Cool. Yes, I don't know if you have more questions. Yeah, Monica, and in that page, we also set a environment variable to use. Yeah, exactly. I mean, in Vercel, I mean, you can define, if I go to, again, to Vercel, you can define here environment variables that you can use here in the settings, environment variables that you can use in your code. So instead of adding the API token from Storyblok in the code of your application, you define it here and you use it in your code. One more cool thing that I have to mention related to Vercel, if we go here to the Git menu, you have the possibility of defining deploy hooks. So I can put here, for instance, AgentConf, and I will link this to the main branch of my GitHub, repository, the main branch. So I can copy this this hook, and if I go to Storyblok, we have the possibility of going to the settings menu, and here you can add webhooks. So if I add the webhook here, this one, whenever I'm publishing or unpublishing content that I created inside Storyblok, we will trigger this webhook. And this webhook in Vercel, what it will do is to run the build process again. So if we are adding this configuration, what we are really doing is running a build process to generate the static assets of our website whenever we publish or whenever we save the changes of the stories that we are creating in Storyblok. So this is a cool thing that we can use to link Vercel with Storyblok. So whenever we apply a change in the headless CMS in the Storyblok, that change will be reflected in the code of, sorry, not in the code, in the pages of our website, because we will run again the process to generate the static assets for our website. So we will have always the updated versions of our static pages with the content, reflecting the content that we created inside Storyblok. So this is something cool to consider, the webhook, in the case that you want to generate static assets whenever you are changing the content inside the headless CMS. So I don't know if you have any other question. But yes, yes, Bekir, we are going to ask the the team to know if they faced that issue before, but I really didn't see that in working with it before with the Storyblok, so I really don't know.
Yeah, but I took the notes so that we can investigate a bit more detail. So yeah, we are gonna definitely have a look.
Yeah, so I think I showed pretty everything that I wanted to show. If you have any particular question, we are running out of time. I see that we spent 15 more minutes than the plan, but I saw the messages of all the people living in the chat. Thank you very much. Gracias, Gabriel. I see that we have another Argentinian in the in the workshop, so super cool you are joining. If you want to keep in touch, again, Arisa shared our Twitter accounts before, but again, if you have any question, please feel free to write me, write Arisa. We shared our contacts before, but we can share them with you again. Or if you enter to the AgentConf, link of the workshop, you can see our details too there. So I will stop sharing my screen, but again, thank you very much. Sorry for the issues that I had with the style there. It was a lot of content that we wanted to present, and probably we ran out of time. But if you have any other question, if you want to use Storyblok in your projects, if you have doubts about it, please feel free to reach out to us, to Arisa, to me. We have the Storyblok homepage if you want to enter there. We have the Storyblok Technologies hub that you can visit. I will share again the page that we were using of Notion in the case that you didn't take note about it, but there you have our contact, I mean, our Twitter accounts, the Storyblok homepage, the technology hub, tutorials. Monica here, she has a good point. We have also a Discord channel where you can ask a particular question, and there is a lot of people inside Discord that they want to answer your questions because probably they faced the same issue in the past or they are working with similar projects. So again, anything that you want to know about Storyblok, about connecting Storyblok to Next.js, or how you can create your Jamstack project, feel free to reach out to us. I hope that the workshop was helpful for you and you learned something new.
Yeah, again, thanks everyone for joining the workshop. And yeah, I'm really happy that we were able to complete our workshop, and also it was really interactive. So thanks again for asking us a lot of questions, and we really enjoyed. Yeah. All right, then I think we can close our workshop. So we are going to make sure with AgentConf team that our recording should be handed over to them, so that some of you who might have missed in the beginning, or some of your colleagues who didn't, who weren't able to manage the time to join the workshop, they will be able to, or they should be able to see later on. Yeah. All right, then thank you, everyone. Then
thank you very much.
See you soon. Yeah, bye.
See you.